Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the March 2022 AB 617 Portside Community Steering Committee meeting. If you are here for the San Diego County Air Pollution Control District Environmental Justice Framework Workshop, you are in the correct place. So please sit tight as we move along to that meeting item. And we're just giving a few more minutes as folks trickle in, and we'll get started with our meeting.
Okay. Vamos a esperar unos minutos de más para que todos se unen a la reunión.
Thank you, everyone. And now we'll pass it on to our fabulous interpreter, Vicky, to give us instructions on how to access interpretation.
Okay. Voy a empezar con el español. Si están utilizando su computadora portátil o computadora de escritorio, favor de localizar el icono con figura de globo en la parte inferior de su pantalla cuando este aparezca en un minuto y luego pulsen en interpretación de lenguaje, Language Interpretation, y seleccionen el idioma español. Si están sintonizándonos de su teléfono, iPad o dispositivo similar, busquen el menú con los tres puntitos en la esquina superior del lado derecho de su pantalla y pulsen Interpretación de lenguaje, Language Interpretation, y luego el español. Esto permite que escuchen la traducción al español con un 80% de volumen y el audio en inglés se escuchará al fondo con un 20% de volumen. Tienen la opción de apagar el audio en inglés pulsando Mute Original Audio, ubicado en el mismo menú donde eligieron el idioma español. Gracias. And for English, if you are using your laptop or your desktop, also please locate that icon, the globe icon at the bottom of your screen, and select English when that appears in a moment, which is language interpretation, selecting the English. And if you are using your phone, your iPad, or another sort of apparatus, go to the menu with the little three dots in the top right corner of your screen and click on interpretation or language interpretation and choose choose English. This will allow you, when someone is speaking in Spanish and it's being interpreted in English, you'll be able to hear it. If you're on the main English, you won't be able to hear it. Thank you. This completes the instructions.
Thank you, Vicky. And Johnny has just launched the interpretation. Alicia, apenas avanzamos la interpretación. Por favor, confirmar si lo puedes encontrar.
Listo, ya lo puse.
Perfect, thank you.
¿Me escuchas bien?
Sí.
Perfecto, gracias.
Gracias. Moving on to our next slide. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Once again, we are in the March 2022 Portside Community Steering Committee meeting. If you are here for the San Diego Air District Environmental Justice Framework Workshop, you are in the correct place. That will be our first item at today's meeting. And now I'll pass it on to my colleague, Anna, who will go over the meeting objectives and agenda for today.
Good evening, everyone. Today's meeting objectives are to hold a workshop on the San Diego Air Pollution Control District's Environmental Justice Office Draft Framework, and to receive a brief update on the Portside Community Air Monitoring sites. The committee will also learn about the California Air Resource Board AB 617 Community Hub Data Dashboard that summarizes key AB 617 efforts and documents across the state. For tonight's agenda, after reviewing roll call and the approval of the meeting notes and tonight's agenda, we will have a workshop on the Environmental Justice Office Framework led by Domingo. Then SDAPCD will provide an update on the Portside Community Air Monitoring sites, followed by a presentation on the AB 617 Community Hub Data Dashboard led by Hanjero. We will then close off with public comments and any closing updates and or remarks. Just as a quick reminder of our meeting agreements, which are to create a space for everyone to contribute, to step up if you step up if you are on the quiet side, and step back if you have had the opportunity to contribute, to ensure that only one person is speaking at a time, to listen to each other, to respect each other as well as opinions, knowledge, and perspective, to be conscious of time, and to speak slowly and clearly for the interpreter. And now I'll pass it back to Chewy.
Thank you, Anna. And now we'll get moving along with our attendance check. So Keith Curry let us know earlier he wouldn't be able to join us today. So moving along to Jack Monger.
Good evening, I'm here, thank you.
Hi, Jack. Massey Hatch, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Hi, Massey. And Sarah Giobbi wasn't able to join us today, but is Lydia here? Not seeing Lydia on the participant list. Commissioner Sandy Naranjo from the Port of San Diego. Not seeing Sandy. Larry, are you here?
Yes, sir. Larry's here.
Hi, Larry.
Hi.
Phil Trom at Sandag. Not seeing Phil. Is Carrie Robinson here?
Hi, yep, Carrie Robinson's here.
Hey, Carrie. Joy Williams at EHC.
Hello, I'm here.
Good, Joy. Martin Reeder, National City.
Martin Reeder present, thank you.
And Martin. Is David Welch here? Not seeing
No,
David.
he won't be participating.
Got it. And Roman Partida Lopez let me know earlier he wouldn't be able to join. Neither is Dr. Yun or Dr. Diaz, but Dr. Wynn has joined us in their replacement for tonight. Diane Vermeulen at Caltrans. Not seeing Diane. Samantha Liu at US Navy.
Good evening, I'm present.
Hey, Samantha. Is Helen Haas here? Not seeing Helen. Dina Williard, let me know she will be on the call. Is Filomena here? Not seeing Filomena. Next slide, please. Is Janice Luna Reynoso here?
Yes.
Hey, Janice. Is John Alvarado here?
I am here.
Hi, John.
How we doing?
Doing great. Is Hillary Medina here? Not seeing Hillary. Alicia Sanchez.
Presente.
Alicia. Margarita Moreno.
I'm here.
Margarita. Naomi Sanchez. Not seeing Naomi. Vanessa Contreras. Not seeing Vanessa. Is Salvador Razo Abrica here? Not seeing Sal. Montserrat Hernandez.
Presente.
Hola, Montserrat. Silvia Calzada.
Hola.
Hi, Silvia.
Tiene problemas, Silvia tiene problemas con su internet, pero ya pronto va a estar con nosotros.
Muy bien, sí, la miro en la lista.
Ok.
Ashley Valentin. Not seeing Ashley. Josephine Talamantes. Not seeing Josephine. And Maritza Contreras.
Here, hey guys.
Hi, Maritza. Great, thank you, everybody. And now I wanted to hand it off to Domingo to give us some quick updates.
Hi, good evening, everybody. For those of you joining the meeting for the Office of Environmental Justice Framework Workshop, my name is Domingo Vigil. I'm a Deputy Director at APCD, overseeing our Office of Environmental Justice and our Monitoring Division. Just in general updates that I wanted to share, we, as many of you know already, we were able to get the community of the international border community, which includes San Isidro and East Otay Mesa, selected to participate as part of the Clean Air Community Air Protection Program. And we had our initial meeting with that community last week. It was a successful meeting. We shared some goals for the program and some background information about why we are, why we're there, why we're hoping to partner with that community. And we received a lot of interest to join the steering committee that we're trying to form for the international border community. So I just wanted to share that for everyone's awareness. And if anybody has any contacts down by San Isidro or East Otay Mesa that you think might be interested in joining us for those meetings, please send them our way, and we'd be happy to collaborate with them. So that was it from my end, Chuy. Thank you.
Great. And I wanted to hand it off to Larry to give an update on behalf of the port.
Thanks, Chuy, and good evening, everyone. Just a real quick update where the port is moving forward with a number of clean air initiatives associated with the Maritime Clean Air Strategy, or MCAS. One item, though, that was supposed to go to our Board of Port Commissioners was the Zero Emission Truck Transition Plan on March 8th. We had another really lengthy item at that hearing, so that was continued. So I just want everyone to know if that we're on the docket to share the preliminary zero emission truck transition plan to our Board of Port Commissioners on April 12th. Then the game plan is to come back with a final plan to our Board of Port Commissioners on June 14th. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to send me a chat, and happy to provide more information. Thanks, Chuy.
Great, thank you, Larry. And moving along, for our first item, we wanted to open it up to the steering committee members to approve tonight's agenda and last month's draft meeting notes.
This is Maritza. I move to approve.
Thank you, Maritza.
Martin Reeder, National City, second.
And a second from Martin Reeder. Thank you. And just for the sake of time, if you have any edits on the votes, feel free to raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll approve the agenda notes. Hearing none, so the agenda and last month's notes are approved. Thank you. And hi, Sandy and Josephine, thank you for joining us. I'll have you down as present. Moving along, I wanted to pass it on to Domingo Vigil to kick us off on a workshop for the Office of Environmental Justice Framework.
Thank you very much, Chuy. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I know this meeting, we opened it up and we did some additional outreach to get more people involved, and hoping to receive feedback and input on our draft framework for APCD's Office of Environmental Justice. And I would like to start just by providing a little bit of background on the creation of this office. Next slide, please. So this office was created as an internal office within the Air Pollution Control District in 2020. And at that time, there were two positions that were created, a deputy director position and a program coordinator to serve as a PIO or outreach coordinator, and also to support the implementation of our community air protection program as required by Assembly Bill 617. Those positions would also develop strategies to engage environmental justice stakeholders and the AB 617 community in policy and budget development, as well as priority setting. The Office of Environmental Justice will work to intentionally and specifically integrate environmental justice considerations in all agency actions. And this includes support for meaningful community engagement and the promotion of environmental justice and equity considerations in APCD's decision-making processes. I also want to highlight that the creation of this office is also in line with the Portside Community Emissions Reduction Plan. Next slide, please. So we want to start with asking the question, what is environmental justice? How are we defining that term for us to look at different things at APCD? So we invited APCD staff to participate in a survey that we conducted last summer. And based on the responses, we took EPA's definition for environmental justice and incorporated some of the input from our staff. And today we're hoping to incorporate input from members of the public. I'd like to mention that this draft framework is available on our website, and we're hoping to continue the public comment period throughout next week. So we hope to hear from you. If not tonight, you'll have the opportunity to provide comments to us via email as well, and we'll share that information. I'll ask our PIO, Melina, if you can put our email on the chat so folks know where to send their comments, but you'll also get that opportunity later tonight. So I'd like to just read out loud this proposed definition. And environmental justice is the equitable treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, income, gender, or ability, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. Next slide, please. So what is the scope of this office? We're looking both internally and externally. What would be the responsibilities that we would have? Internally, we would want to make sure that we inform our board members and staff on matters of environmental justice and equity to ensure that everybody has the information they need to make decisions that are supporting environmental justice and equity. We want to collaborate with staff to build and uphold an internal culture of equity, diversity, and inclusion, because we obviously need to start within, and we need to make sure that we're walking our talk, right? We want to ensure that an equity and environmental justice lens is used as we analyze air quality challenges, and that we make considerations for those elements. Externally, we want to identify opportunity areas to better serve disadvantaged communities and working with those communities to bring solutions to their air quality challenges. We want to expand opportunities for public engagement that result in meaningful participation in our decision-making processes. And we want to assess needs in the most impacted communities and collaboratively design solutions to air quality challenges. So to that effect, we have a number of goals that would allow us to work on those responsibilities on our scope. So in the following slides, I will explore each one of the goals and associated strategies under each goal that would help us accomplish the goals. Next slide, please. So our first goal would be to design an educational plan for our board members focusing on areas that are disproportionately impacted by air pollution. So to accomplish this, we would develop materials to inform our governing board as well as our hearing board members of the health effects of air pollution, include a map with a focus on the highest risk communities and how they compare to the rest of the county. We want to provide information and updates regarding our air toxics hotspots program and air monitoring locations, highlighting some of the trends in communities, and also engage individual board members on environmental justice communities when we're trying to address issues at the communities that they represent. Next slide, please. Our next goal is to foster and uphold an internal culture at APCD that supports equity, diversity, and inclusion. So to accomplish this, we would provide training opportunities to APCD staff on these important values. We would support activities that are inclusive and that celebrate and embrace the diversity of the APCD team, share information among staff on how each of our divisions contributes to environmental equity. Also creating an internal and external outreach piece that highlights our staff and what they do so that we can communicate to the community, who is it that is working on improving air quality in the region and in their communities. We also want to promote staff participation in employee resource groups within the county organization. Next slide, please. So for our next goal would be to integrate environmental justice and equity in APCD's operations, policies, and regulations. So to accomplish this, we would develop a framework for leadership and staff with direction and guidance on how to integrate environmental justice into APCD's work. We would also identify commitments from each of our programs to support environmental justice and report on progress at our annual report. We would engage environmental justice stakeholders and the community air protection program community in policy and budget development, monitoring network planning, and planning efforts to meet air quality standards and protect public health. And finally, we would also implement and expand our community air protection program in environmental justice communities. Next slide. Then our final goal is to improve APCD's outreach and education efforts in communities with a special focus on disadvantaged communities most affected by pollution. And to accomplish that, we have been working on the development of a public participation plan, which we will present to our board next month. We just closed our open comment period for that plan, and we were very happy to see a lot of engagement from actually a lot of the folks present here today, and also a lot of members of the public and community-based organizations throughout the region. We would foster increased community involvement on the rule development, permitting, budget, and other processes in APCD, enhance language access and multilingual community relations, and also increase awareness of APCD's complaint program and ensure accessibility for communities region-wide. So what does the work, what does our EJ work look in practice? What have we been doing already that we're hoping to expand? And a good example is what we're doing with the Portside community. If we can go to the next slide. All the members of the steering committee here tonight are very familiar with our work here in Portside, but for those members of the public that are joining us from outside of this community, there's been a lot of public engagement and community partnerships to address our quality challenges here in the Portside community. We developed an emissions reduction plan specifically for this community that also brings benefit to surrounding areas, and in a lot of instances region-wide. We're looking at things like reducing exposure to air pollution, improving transportation efficiencies, reducing diesel emissions from cargo handling equipment, supporting dedicated truck routes, and a lot of all of these efforts really are taking place because of the leadership of the community and the organizations that are participating with us in implementing this program. So a lot of the work that we do with this community is something that we're hoping to expand to other communities. And a good example of that is our work that we're starting in the border area. If you go to the next slide, please. We're hoping to do similar engagement in the border communities of San Isidro and East Otay Mesa, as I mentioned earlier, and really help understand what are some of the air quality challenges in the border area and hear from the community what their lived experiences have been in terms of air quality and health challenges related to air quality, and get them engaged in finding solutions and implementing those strategies in their communities. Next slide, please. So as far as next steps, we will continue our engagement of APCD staff and community to finalize our Office of EJ framework. As I mentioned, we have a public comment period open, which closes next week on March 30th. So we really encourage everybody to share their thoughts and input, comments with us. And we will be presenting this framework to the APCD governing board on April 14, seeking their approval. And we will continue collaborating with all organizations in the region that can be partners with us in improving air quality, particularly with the County of San Diego's Office of Environmental and Climate Justice that was recently established by the County Board of Supervisors. And next slide. So we have a number of questions that we would like to ask. We have an exercise that we want to share with everybody just to get a little bit more input. I'll turn it over to Chuy. Am I turning it over to you or to Joanny?
You can turn it over to me.
All right, go for it.
Great. Thanks, Domingo. So some of you folks may be familiar with the Metameter tool. We've used it at previous meetings. So we thought it'd be a good idea to bring it back to get more input from you all on the Office of Environmental Justice framework. So if you could open or click the link in the chat to join the Metameter link. And once you're able to join, you'll be able to access a series of questions that you'll be able to answer through the site for everyone to see responses and compare with each other. So we'll give it a few minutes as folks either click the link in the chat or follow the instructions on the screen. Looks like we have 12 people, 13, 15.
Hi, Chuy. I'm not seeing any questions yet. Are we supposed to be seeing questions on that Metameter screen?
Not yet. We'll we're just waiting for folks to sign on, but yes, we'll shortly questions will come up. Great. I think, Johnny, we're ready to get started. And for folks who had trouble logging on, feel free to answer the question in the chat and we can place it in the Metameter for you. So for our first question, just to get started, what does environmental justice mean to you? What words, one or two words, come to mind? Seeing equity, aire limpio, clean air. Margarita added aire limpio y justicia, clean air and justice in the chat. Great, getting a lot of great responses. Great, thank you. Does anyone want to share, unmute and share the word they shared and give a little context? Hearing none, folks are a little quiet today.
Comment. So I'm not sure if I'm seeing
Yo
it.
puedo también decir algo.
So I mentioned Kumeyaay land, and so to include the Kumeyaay, the original stewards of the land in this conversation, I think when it comes to environmental justice, for us to ground ourselves in that, we've gotten so far from that that's why we have all these issues. So I think to go back to the root of understanding our relationship, our ancestral relationship to the land and to each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Y Margarita, ¿tú también querías compartir?
Yo fui
Montserrat.
soy Montserrat. Sí, yo puse aire limpio porque la finalidad es que las comunidades donde hemos sufrido estos impactos acumulativos en cuanto a la contaminación, pues queremos eso, ¿no? Tener un aire limpio y poder aspirar a tener pues salud, sobre todo en los niños de nuestra comunidad, que son los que se ven más afectados por asma.
Muchas gracias, Montserrat. And if you're an English speaker, reminder just to join the English channel. We do have interpretation from Spanish to English. Moving on to our next question. And this question is focused on goal 1 that Domingo shared. And just to repeat that goal, the goal is to design an educational plan for APCD board members with a focus on areas of the region that are disproportionately impacted by air pollution. So if you had an opportunity to speak with the board, what do you want them to know about your community? What information do you think is important? And feel free just to add a phrase or a topic.
¿Puedo hablar?
Sí.
Bueno, yo hablando acerca de mi comunidad, pienso que también muchas veces en las comunidades necesitamos cambiar que estemos residencias con talleres o con negocios que contaminan el ambiente, porque no nada más en National City, sino en varios lugares pasa esto y si no erradicamos eso, pues nada va a cambiar. Es una de las cosas que a mí me preocupa.
Gracias, Margarita. John, I saw your hand is raised.
Yes, my apologies. I just had eye surgery, so I I got a little problem filling in the blanks, so to speak. But that being said, number one, I want to congratulate the folks who put this, who are working on this program. I think it's critically important. But at the same time, I also know that our community, okay, is made up of many different groups. We've got the working class of individuals, you know, and then we have our you know, the people who, if you will, work with the unions, who work in the schools and whatnot. So we have all these different groups. So I think there needs to be an explanation of what it is that's happening or getting ready to take place in ways that everyone in the community can understand. Okay, I think that's critical because we have some very high level thinkers, and I love that as an educator. But at the same time, I know that if we're speaking to the people down here on my block who are just, you know, wonderful people who in many cases, never went to school. And they're just hardworking people, and we need to be able to communicate and maybe more importantly, establish a bond of trust, knowing that they know that we're here for them. And I think that's very, very important. And well, that's what I got to say.
Thank you, John. Very well put. Great. Anyone else want to share about the response they wrote down? And members of the public, you're also welcome to raise your hand and we can unmute you from our end. Great. Hearing none, so thank you so much for your responses. We'll move on to our next question, which is focused on goal 2, which Anna will shortly paste into the chat. But goal 2 is primarily focused on fostering and upholding an internal culture at the Air District that supports equity, diversity, and inclusion. What do you think San Diego Air Pollution Control District staff can do to support environmental justice and equity? Your first response, someone shared that staff should use their voice to constantly advocate for our community. Staff should develop a public work plan on how they are raising every staff member core competencies on environmental justice. Collect important data uses. John, I see your hand raised. Feel free to share.
Yes, just this week, I've been asked twice, right here where I live on Logan Avenue, by individuals who have children in the schools. And they're a little confused. Their children are supposed to be one of the most important things in their lives. And yet we talk about all of this air pollution and whatnot. What are the actual effects on their children? I've mentioned once before about the devices that are going to be going into some of the homes and whatnot. And, grandma and grandpa are going to get one of those units, but what happens to the 5 kids in the next room? I don't believe they think that we're that concerned about the children. And of course, for many of our families here in Barrio Logan, that's our world, our children. So I think more attention along those lines is very important. Maybe even have some meetings like the old PTA meetings we used to have in schools where parents can, come in or, do a virtual and get some information about what we need and what they need for their children.
Great, thank you. So I'm hearing more partnerships with schools and focus on our children. Anyone else want to share? seeing a lot about educating staff and learning from the community. Great responses, everybody. Unless no one else wants to share, I think we're ready to move on to our next question. So this is a multiple choice question for goal number 3, which is to integrate environmental justice and equity in APCD's operations, policies, and regulations. And then for a question, we wanted to know a little more from what you want to learn about ACD, San Diego Air District's functions. Which area would you like to learn more about? And we'll be using this to inform future meetings and educational materials for the public.
Are we just supposed to pick one?
You can pick as many as you want.
You can only pick one.
Is that right?
Yeah, it only allowed me to pick one. I had other choices, but it only allowed me.
Yeah,
to
it doesn't
pick one.
permit us to do multiple.
Okay. We'll leave it at 1, but feel free to add it in the chat or over to everyone. You can also just share and elaborate what other topics you'd like to learn more about. Thanks, Josephine. And Domingo, just so folks understand, monitoring and compliance sort of go hand in hand with one another, right?
Well, for monitoring, you're talking about basically gathering data about air quality from the ambient, right? From the air, tracking pollutants that are in the air. And then compliance, you're talking about people following the rules, basically, all of our regulated community complying with our regulations. And also the ability for folks to communicate to us air quality concerns or complaints they might have from air quality in their community.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Jack. Would you like to elaborate more on your response in the chat?
Hi, Joey. This is Jack. Just to hear more about what the district feels, how it feels its efforts have made a difference or are making a difference from day to day, whether we go back a couple of years or whether we start with the beginning of the AB 617 process, just what sort of improvements and contributions and positive successes the district would attribute to their efforts.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jack. And if I may do a quick plug on that, we are working on developing an annual report for APCD that we're hoping to release this summer, where we will share a lot of information, about basically what we do, what we have been doing, what the air quality looks like in the region, and all the work that our staff has done to improve air quality and some of the progress that we've made, and highlighting a lot of the efforts that have taken place in the past year. So just wanted to flag that for folks.
Domingo, Jack again. I think that's a great idea. if I could make a suggestion, it would be that everyone would probably appreciate hearing that more than once a year, because I think the efforts you are making currently are so broad and so potentially impactful that they may be measured on a quarterly basis, or certainly on a semi-annual basis, to really look at some of those benefits.
Thank you, Jack. Yeah, that's an excellent point. And part of our goal through our public participation plan is not just to have members of the public engage more in our activities, but also APCD getting out more in the community, right? And getting our message out as far as, like you mentioned, what have we done? And also what can folks do to help improve air quality in their communities and region-wide. So absolutely something that is a top priority for us too. So thanks for highlighting that here.
Great, thank you. John, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes. Yes, I just got a call from a community member, and they just wanted to know how, if you will, how closely are you in touch with Sandag as to the air pollution and whatnot, particularly here in Barrio Logan, with the freeway literally being at our backyard in many cases, and because we understand that there's quite a bit of pollution coming right out of the freeway, so they wanted to know, how closely much of your information and whatnot is due to the freeway itself, and what can be done about it.
Thank you for that comment, John. I don't want to, deviate too much from our agenda here today, but I'll just comment quickly that we are in very close communication with Sandag, and we continuously collaborate with their staff. As you might be aware, there are a number of projects in the community emissions reduction plan that was adopted for Portside that are closely related to transportation planning, and that Sandag has an active piece in, as well as other transportation agencies like Caltrans. We're also working closely with the California Air Resources Board on a modeling exercise to help us identify some of the risks from the different pollution sources that we have in this community, and that includes transportation as well. So to answer your question in short, yes, we are in very close coordination with Sandag.
Great, thank you. And I just want to highlight that monitoring definitely got the most votes, and we will be getting a quick update on the monitoring sites today. And it's our intent to give quarterly updates on monitoring data from now on at these meetings, with the next one being in May. I believe that's right, Domingo?
Correct. So the update that we will share today is is related to the progress on our sites, on our monitoring sites in Portside, with the intent of having a more comprehensive update on that it will include data on our next meeting in May. And we also, as you mentioned, we're committing to have quarterly updates on air quality data moving forward.
Thank you, Domingo, and everybody for participating. So for our next question, which is very similar, which area do you feel you need to be more engaged with? And this is related to the fourth APCD office EJ goal on improving APCD's outreach and education efforts in communities, with a special focus on disadvantaged communities most affected by pollution. And again, if you have a number 2 and a number 3, feel free to add them to the chat. We know all these items are important. Looks like rule development, interestingly, comes to the top. Yeah, I'm wondering, Domingo, if this could be an interesting workshop at a future meeting or a presentation on how rules are developed at APCD, so folks get a better sense of the inner workings of the district.
That's a great idea. Thank you, Chuy. And also wanted to mention that every rule that we develop in APCD, we conduct public outreach and we offer workshops to go over the rules and have a better understanding of the rules. And it's also an area that we are hoping to improve our outreach on and get more community engagement in the future. But I think that that's a great suggestion to bring maybe that team to this forum to share just the overall process of how rules are developed and what's driving the development of rules at APCD. Thank you, Chuy. That's a great suggestion.
Great. Definitely see your comments, Sylvia and Vanessa, on adding compliance and planning as well. Anyone else have any comments they want to share to the group? Hearing none. Well, thank you, everybody. This was our last question on Metameter, but definitely just want to open it up for any general questions folks have or comments on the Environmental Justice Framework, Office of Environmental Justice Framework as a whole. And Johnny, if you can switch it to the slide with all the goals, that'd be great.
I believe that's slide number 4. There you go.
So once again, Domingo noted that this is not the last opportunity to provide comment on the framework. So if you don't have any comments now, feel free to send an email over at the email Melina had shared in the chat.
Thank you, Chuy. I also want to highlight that, again, this framework will be presented to our board on our meeting in April. That's April 14 at 2 p.m. So that is also another opportunity to engage and provide comments at that meeting as well.
Great. And I'll make sure to send a reminder to folks via email. John, you have a question?
Yes, you know, one of the things that I've been doing with many of my community members here, and that is, I had mentioned it once before, you know, I sleep with a sleep apnea machine, and the filters every 7 days have to be replaced because they turn to what they're white and they turn grayish black. And when we talk about, you know, monitoring systems and whatnot, what is it exactly that we're talking about? Because they want to see something. So I show them my filters, and, you know, and it has a complete different impact on them. You know, as most people are visual learners, they see that and it just, you know, it means so much more, okay, than just some number, some statistic. And I think we should have more of that so they can actually see what it looks like when we start talking about what the actual pollutants, the particulates, what they actually are. And like I said, I've noticed a huge difference with the people that I work with and talking with them, and it really makes a difference. And if you want some filters, I got some.
Thank you, Don. I was about to say, maybe
we'll take your word for it, John. Thank you.
More visuals. We definitely hear you on that. Any other questions or comments from steering committee members or members of the public? Seeing none. Well, thank you everybody so much for participating. We'll move along to the next item, but as noted in the chat, feel free to send any other comments to the email. And now for our next item, I wanted to hand it over to David Soderman, who will be giving an update on the Portside community air monitoring sites.
Good evening, everybody. My name is David Soderman. I'm the Chief of the Monitoring and Technical Services Division at the Air District. And tonight I'm just going to give you kind of a brief update on our air monitoring sites, where they are, what they're currently measuring as we stand. So if we can go to the next slide. So this slide here depicts the monitoring locations within the Portside community. The sites in green are currently operational, while the sites in yellow are in various stages of progress of getting to the point where we can actually deploy monitoring equipment at those locations. I am happy to point out that the site that's labeled CTB, which is at the corner of Boston Avenue and South 29th Street, will be operational within the next week. So in previous slides that we given, that was in yellow, that is now going to be turning green. And we are hoping in the next couple of months to be able to start the installation process of installing equipment at the location labeled BES, which is the Burbank Elementary School, and the National City Train Depot, which is labeled on the slide NCD. We're making good progress working with the Navy on the site that's located on their base labeled NRV. And that one we're hopeful will be operational within the next fiscal year. So if we move on to the next slide, we will actually then show what we have at each of the monitoring locations. So this slide is a little bit busy in the sense that you got the site locations up on top in two different colors. And then you have different pollutants going up and vertically up and down. So if a site is in green, that means it's operational. If it's in yellow, it means that we're working on getting that site in operational status. Let's see, a green yes means that that pollutant is being actively measured at that site. A green or yellow no means that there are no plans to measure that pollutant at that site, whether it's currently a site that's in operation or a site that we're hoping to get operated or get operational in the future. A yellow yes means that the pollutant will be measured at that site when that site becomes operational, or if it's a yellow yes on a green site, what that means is that we are still working on developing and contracting out the lab analysis for that type of pollutant. And so for the toxic metals and the toxic volatile organic compounds, these programs will be outsourced to a contract laboratory. And we're still finalizing those contracts, so we can't start the sampling until those contracts are in place. We are in the final stages of finalizing the metals contract, and we should have a signed contract within the next month or so. And the toxic VOC contract or volatile organic compounds, it's taken a little bit longer to select that contract laboratory and then finalize, but we're hoping to have that one finalized and begin sampling hopefully within the next few months, but it might take a little bit longer with that. And so that's all I have for this month's update on the different pollutants that we're measuring. Oh, I guess I can mention that the second kind of pollutant up there is the elemental and organic carbon program. That is very similar to the black carbon program. in that it's a good surrogate for measuring diesel particulate matter. In fact, it's actually probably a better technique than the black carbon measurements, but that is a filter-based program, so it's only collecting a sample 1 day out of every 6 days, and so that's why we have both the black carbon and the elemental program, or elemental carbon program. So with that, I will be happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Thank you, David. And to get us started, I just wanted to highlight Josephine's question in the chat.
Yes, so she asked, are on the nose, will they be measured in the future? And at this time, no, that is not the plan. And the biggest nose that we see here is at Ocean View Boulevard, OVB, and we noticed that the only program we're measuring there is black carbon, and all the other programs are pollutants. We're saying no, and that is a space limitation with the landowners, and so we don't have enough room to expand and put more equipment at that location, and so we're really limited to only one pollutant at that site, or one program at that site. But that doesn't mean that we can't shut down, say, black carbon at that site and then start up toxic metals. So that is an option. We're not just limited just to black carbon at that site, but we are limited to only having one piece of equipment at that site at this time.
Thank you, David.
And Drew, I just have a comment to offer. I think that I just like to share, because this might be in people's minds, and I just wanted to offer some information on why it's taken the time it's taken to get this sites up and operational. As you see, we've had those 4 sites up for a number of months, and it's taken time. It's taken a long time to get the rest of the sites up. And I just wanted to share some of the challenges that we face with getting these sites sited, just so that people understand, why the delay. And first of all, we need to make sure that, we find land that's available in the sites that were recommended by the steering committee. And that is, that's an important challenge. We have to, once we identify sites that would meet the criteria for us to place these monitoring equipment, we have to enter into agreements with the landowners, which is also not a very simple process. We also have to look at agreements with different lab companies to analyze some of the pollutants that we will be collecting that we're not able to do in-house. We also have to sometimes do a little bit of construction, or even working with SDG&E to get power to the site if there's no power available. And all those processes take time, and they can extend for different periods of time. Unfortunately, when we're talking about contracting, anytime that you enter into a contract with the county, there's a lot of checks and balances in place to make sure that the information is transparent, to make sure that we are stewards of public funds, when we're talking about government. So we want to make sure that everything is in the best interest of the public. So what that means is that the contracting processes tend to be lengthier. There's a lot more layers that that these contracts go through. So it's really a combination of, at every step of the way, it's unfortunately a long process and not always as straightforward. So I just wanted to offer that explanation.
Right, and we also have to work with the various cities as well that these sites are in for permitting as well, and
permitting.
That
that's right.
Sometimes takes a while, making sure that that's all squared away.
Thank you for that, Domingo and David. Jack, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, and David and Domingo, thank you for that update. I appreciate your including that in the agenda tonight. I think and Domingo, those obstacles you went through, I have to tell you, that was the primary discussion item in meetings 1, 2, and 3 back when we started this whole process, is how challenging it was to cite and then activate these measuring systems and to begin to collect some data. The concern I have is that this is the baseline. This is the baseline by which we are going to assess the current condition of the community, the progress that is made in the community by all of these goals that we have over the next 5 years. And now we're actually, 6 months into our own SERP. So we're down to 4.5 years, at which time we are supposed to be making some progress. And I don't see how we're going to be able to measure that if we don't have some baseline for these sampling stations. And so I totally appreciate the challenges that you all have gone through in terms of citing and funding and gaining the approvals for them. But I just hope we can have some discussion and be aware of, and maybe the best thing would be to ask you is, when do you think we will be at the point where we can begin to collect data from these sampling stations to create a starting point for us so we can all begin to see if we're actually making progress or not?
Thank you, Jack, and I'll let David address a little bit of that in terms of the timeline for having some of these operational. But I hear you about the challenge of not having a lot of this data yet, and that's something that we that's a concern that we share. But at the same time, I want to reassure folks that this is not the only information that we're looking at when we're looking at air quality challenges in the community. We have information from emission inventories. We have information that we're collecting in collaboration with CARB as well. So while we want to make sure that we have these monitors in place and that we have the data available to help us measure that progress, it's only one tool. We have other tools, but I hear you, and on our end we commit to certainly continue to work hard to get these sites up and running as quickly as possible, because we want to have that data as well and make sure to share it with the public too. So thank you for sharing that concern, and thanks to everybody for their patience. It's been quite a process, and we're still working hard to accomplish it. And David, I don't know if you have anything to offer as far as a potential timeline.
Yeah, so the potential timeline, it's hard to say, because we would have thought that we would have been here by now, and we've hit some roadblocks that we weren't expecting to hit. I do know that for the toxic metals contract, that is now up to the lawyers to decide on agreeing to the terms and conditions. And so how long that will take, I think it shouldn't take that long, but it's taken longer than I would have anticipated. But it should be done within the next month or two. And for the toxic volatile organic compound contract, that one's going to take a little bit longer. We're meeting on selecting that contract lab, and then once we make that recommendation to hire that contract lab, then we got to come to an agreement with that contract lab on terms and conditions. Sometimes that's a very quick process, and other times it gets delayed because the lawyers have got to then argue about and discuss and come to some sort of agreement on what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And so unfortunately, I can't really gauge how long that one's going to take. But that one's probably going to take several more months. But we do have the black carbon that has been in operations for the last couple years, the elemental carbon that's been going on for the last year or so. And so we do have some data. We're not completely have no data, but we would like to have more.
Well, thank you both for that explanation, and I hope we can continue pressing on this, because to me it's the very basis of everything we want to try to accomplish, and the ability to measure our progress in the years ahead for the community really to see if there's been any improvement. I mean, as you noted, there are other sources of information that are available to us, but a lot of that is based on modeling with an assumption about traffic, assumption about facilities. It's just nothing is going to be as accurate as having these sampling stations in place, measuring these important factors that we want to have measured. So I hope we can, and it seemed to me tonight that we saw an expression from many people that monitoring was a priority for them. And I hope we can continue to revisit this to give us a sense of how we're doing on that and what maybe any of us can do to help move that along. But we've been at this for 3 years now or more. And if there's obstacles that we can help overcome and move this along, we'd really like to do that.
Thank you, Jack. We really appreciate it, and we agree with you. We want to make sure that we have this information available, and every piece of the pie has it's important, and there's certainly nothing that can replace this piece of the pie, right? So we certainly want to make sure that we have it done as soon as we can. So thank you for that.
Thank you for that. I did want to highlight some questions that came up in the chat. So Dr. Nguyen noted, is there anything with San Isidro and East Otay Mesa that you can let me know? I practice pediatrics right there, and I have a lot of asthma patients. I want to make sure there is a pediatrician on the committee, and I can recruit someone.
That is great to hear, because we're precisely looking for having someone like that in the committee. So if you wouldn't mind, Melina, if you can share the outreach email on the chat, and maybe make sure we get in touch with I'm sorry, could you remind me the name too, who provided that comment?
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, for sure.
Great. And then Dr. Nguyen had a follow-up suggestion that maybe Kaiser could offer a site up for monitoring. Doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah, we can definitely follow up with them.
Thank you.
But to answer your question about is there anything going on with San Isidro and East Otay, we have one monitoring station. It's a regional monitoring station that is kind of like a little office building, office trailer, right at the entrance of the Donovan State Prison that we will be utilizing for that area. We also are working with Caltrans and CHP on establishing a site at the border crossing at their property there where the trucks come through. So that's one that we're actively working with, trying to get permits and a contractor to get that site established and power located to that site. And we currently have a site in San Isidro along the 5 freeway at the fire station along there. And we're working on with county Department of General Services to actually expand that site so we can actually put a lot more equipment there. Right now we're limited to only having a black carbon instrument there, but we're working on actively increasing that site to be able to house a lot of additional equipment. And then in this upcoming year, we'll be looking at working with the community to identify additional sampling locations in San Isidro and Otay Mesa.
Thank you, David. And then I see Joy had a question on when is the National City, I believe that's what NC stands for, National City site will be activated.
Correct. So I'm assuming that you're talking about the NCD one. That's the National City Train Depot. Yeah, that one. I mean, obviously, we'll get it up and running as soon as it's possible. Let's see, where's my notes on that one? I can't find my notes on that one. But that one, we're hoping probably in the next couple months.
Okay, thanks.
I think the last stretch on that one, David, if I'm remembering correctly, was the work with SDG&E on the power.
Correct. I think that's
Mhm.
about right. I think so.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Any other questions on monitoring? And again, we'll have a data update for the data that is being collected in May. See a question from the public, Akshita. You should be able to unmute now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you for this update on the monitoring. I just had a quick question for Domingo. At one point last year, when we were discussing monitoring in one of these steering committee meetings, we had discussed the possibility of a tour of the current monitoring facilities once the pandemic rules kind of easen up. I was wondering if we could revisit that possibility, just so we get a better sense of, what are these contexts that we're dealing with. What does it take? What kind of area does it take to locate a monitor? Issues of power supply, the construction work that's going on. I think being able to see it in material ways could be really helpful in kind of future decision making. So, is there any possibility to revisit the idea of giving tours to all these locations?
Thank you, Akshita. I think that's a great suggestion. I think it's certainly something that we can explore and see how we could make something like that happen. We would have to see how we could organize it in a way that we keep people safe. Obviously, I know that as the situation with the pandemic has improved, we're still not completely out of it, it seems, but we can certainly explore how we can make it happen. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that sounds great. Any other questions or comments before we move on to the next item? Hearing none, so I think we can move on along. Next slide, please. And now I wanted to hand it over to Hanjiro Ambrose at the California Air Resources Board, who is going to give us a presentation on the AB 617 Community Hub.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come down and be here today. And I'm really enjoyable to learn more about the priorities of the community. So thanks to Domingo for the opportunity here to come and present tonight to the steering committee. And so tonight, what I'm here to do is talk to you about some tools that we've developed that to support the community emission reduction program annual reporting process and to support communities on identifying strategies. I think that a lot of what I'll talk about tonight is going to build on themes that were being discussed during the meeting. So I think hopefully we can continue this conversation about how we can improve these tools. So first off, what is the AB 617 Community Hub? Let's go ahead and move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the AB 617 Community Hub is a user-friendly, accessible, web-based data dashboard. It's a tool to track the implementation progress of SERP strategies, primarily collected through the AB 617 annual reporting process. In March of 2021, CARB launched the public-facing version of our Community Hub, and it brings together a number of key data sources into a single resource on information on SERP strategies, annual reporting, and progress tracking. And so the current version of our Community Hub provides information on air monitoring locations, incentive projects, regulatory program development, and additional information on the SERP documents and strategies, as well as links to important resources and other outside documents. And so the key features of the hub include these concise and periodic updates and links to a number of existing tools. So why are we here tonight? primarily because I heard Domingo said that there was some interest from the steering committee in learning more about the Community Hub. But the Community Hub is a tool that has a growing community of users, and CARB is committed to improving the Community Hubs to increase its functionality and address some key questions which we think are core to the program. Namely, what types of strategies have communities adopted through community emissions reductions programs? What are the status of SERP strategies and SERP targets? And how are SERPs and community air monitoring programs and monitoring campaigns benefiting AB 617 communities? And so today, what I'm going to do first is show you a demonstration of the current version of the Community Hub. Then I'm going to pivot to talking about some tools that we have in development and invite your feedback in continuing the conversation on improving these tools to support to support bringing actionable data to a lot of the questions that I heard discussed tonight. If we can advance to the next slide. Perfect. And so thank you. I see that the link has been dropped into the chat. I appreciate that. And it also appears here on the slide. And so the tool I'm going to show you tonight is available currently on the website, on CARB's website as a draft tool. Now, pardon me really quickly while I disrupt the screen sharing, and you're going to see a slightly different screen share real quick. First, you'll see a version of the slides, and then I'll switch over. Okay, so this is our Community Hub. Sometimes these things are hard to find from a URL. So another way that you might look for it is on Google. And if you are, you should be able to search CAPP communities. And it's generally one of the top hits. I'm not in a private browser, so I have my history is going to bring it up for me. But even if you aren't, it generally is one of the top hits you'll see on Google search for CAP, the 2 Ps, community. Now, the Community Hub, as I said, is a tool that we've developed to be a data dashboard to track a number of information on SERP strategies, annual reporting, and progress tracking. It also serves as a landing page for information about communities identified through the AB 617 program. So if you visited this page already, you'll see, it probably looks familiar to you, and you'll see here a map of communities identified for the AB 617 program across the state. And if you click on one of these communities, for instance, here, if we click tonight, you'll link to a page with more information on your on that community. Now, the Community Hub is more than just a landing page to access more information, to learn more about communities identified through the AB 617 program. It also serves, as I said, as the data repository, data dashboard, providing access to a number of important resources. Before I move on each page, you'll see a little icon that you can click on to activate some instructions if you're visiting the Community Hub on your own in the future. If you click on the Community Air Monitoring tab, you're presented with a map of community AB 617 communities across the state and identified monitors. This monitoring data comes from our AQView data repository and provides some metadata about that monitor. It doesn't provide access to the actual monitoring results, but rather to the monitor's location and whether it's recently been active. It also provides an overview of pollutants that are measured and their frequency in the community. I'm going to move a little quickly through some of the content here on the Community Hub because it really spans a broad swath of information. And if there's questions, we can obviously come back, or I'm happy to connect with folks individually and walk you through anything on this resource. Moving forward, we have information on community emissions reductions programs that have been adopted by communities across the state. This is a valuable resource because it allows you to search strategies in other SERPs to learn more about what different communities have adopted to address priorities and problems in their communities. So here on the top, you'll see a table when you're visiting the Community Hub that lists all the communities that are currently identified under the AB 617 program. And below in this table, you'll see a searchable window here where you can look at other strategies in SERPs. So I'm just going to search in. Actually, I'm going to type in ports here, and we'll see a number of measures that come up or strategies that have come up to address port emissions. Moving on, because I heard some discussion on it tonight as far as a regulatory development. Obviously, there's multiple places where regulation is being developed and different times when regulations are being developed, both at CARB, the state level, and as well at the district level. And it can be difficult to stay abreast of those developments and to make your voices heard during regulatory development. And if you click on the regulations tab of the Community Hub, you can find information on current, recent, and even upcoming events related to different regulations that CARB is currently developing. This document here has a number of links to regulatory documents or existing websites for those programs. And as well, if you keep scrolling down, you'll eventually reach a table which summarizes important dates and the status of those statewide regulations, which obviously are very address some of the similar issues that we hear in the SERPs. Okay, so there is a lot of content in the Community Hub. I'm just going to go ahead and take the share and run the slides since then I don't have to come back because I'm going to switch to another. Demonstration in a moment. So there's a lot of content in the community, in our existing Community Hub. Probably too much to cover right now in detail in our meeting. And as I mentioned at the outset, we have a growing community of users visiting the Community Hub on a daily basis. And that has really highlighted the need for us to develop, to undertake a development of a Community Hub 2.0. So an improved version of the Community Hub, which can provide better access, improved and enhanced access to a number of the data resources that the current Community Hub provides, as well as additional data sources, which we've heard communities asking for. And so part of my goal in coming here tonight is to get your input on how to keep improving this tool. As I said, we're currently launching our development of the Community Hub 2.0, and we really want to ensure that we can partner with communities to make the Community Hub address key questions and make data accessible and transparent so that it can be actionable for communities. So we've heard some frequently asked questions, and we're really excited to both incorporate those into our lessons learned, as well as open the discussion with folks across the state. And as part of that effort, tonight, I was going to show you a piece of what we're developing for our Community Hub 2.0, which is an enhanced incentive reporting portal. So the ability to provide a lot deeper dive onto incentive projects supported in communities. And so tonight, I'm going to show you now a tool that isn't quite ready for public consumption yet. We haven't shared it publicly, but I want to give you a preview on it. Before I move on to that, I just want to make clear that I'm moving on from the Community Hub and into another tool, which is not currently public. And so just to reemphasize that, the Community Hub, which I showed you, we dropped the links in the chat, and we encourage you to visit on your own. And please feel free to reach out with questions. Now I'm going to show you a different tool, which is part of our development of our Community Hub 2.0. And like I said, I hope we can continue the conversation on how to improve these. So as I mentioned, we've heard from folks that there's a lot of interest in getting more information on incentive reporting. And so the tool I'm showing you now is essentially a data dashboard we've put in development to help provide a deeper dive on incentives. We're hoping this tool will be made public in the coming weeks. And so you're just getting an advanced preview. This tool has 4 primary modules. The first is an educational or informative module designed to help folks understand a little bit more about the life cycle of an incentive project. In this case, we're talking about the incentives projects supported by community air protection funds. And a lot of folks, it's even folks who work in these fields, it's difficult to really keep track of where projects are and funds are in their life cycle. There's a lot of different stages that these funding programs go through, and we don't actually always collect data at every step. And so it's good to understand where the data is collected. And when you hover over these icons, you can get a little more information about each of these steps. And as I mentioned, we're hoping to make this tool public in the coming weeks. The second module here of this dashboard, and really the main feature, is an interactive map that allows folks to take a deep dive into the types of projects that are being supported and where and when. For instance, you can click right here onto marine vessels if you were interested in looking at only at marine vessel projects that are supported by community protection funds. The projects across the state are filtered, and we can dive down here, perhaps into the map, and look at some projects that are being supported down here in San Diego and Portside. Let's see, get down there. Oh, a little too far. Remember, we're working on it, but we can cover over some of these dots and get some specific information on projects, when they were funded and where. So we're developing this tool to provide basically a biannual, twice a year snapshot of incentive projects from community protection programs when they're reporting. So this would be the best available data of what we could see in coming on incentives twice a year. In addition, the third module I mentioned is a table down here that provides a breakdown of the different incentive projects by different air districts or AB 617 communities. And the final module that will be accessible on this tool is going to be a data download, where you'll be able to download all of or export any of this data, any of the tables you see here, or the entire data set, essentially, of CAP projects across the state at any time. And we're hoping this becomes, we can, as we continue to develop and roll out these tools, they can become a more standard process for programs to report their incentives. Okay, I'm going to switch back here. I know that was a lot of content. It was very fast. I realized that might have been a little, probably an overload on some level. So just to reiterate, the first piece we showed you tonight, the Community Hub, is available. The link is in the chat. Please, I invite you to visit the Community Hub, give us your unadulterated and frank feedback. And we look forward to coming back to share the enhanced CAP incentives dashboard in the coming weeks, and hopefully provide you all access to that And my email here is listed on the slide, and I'm the main person in charge of developing some of these this tool. And Liliana as well is a great contact point, and we would be more than happy to hear from you. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you so much, Hanjiro. That was a great presentation. I did want to surface in the chat that Montserrat had raised that the Spanish wasn't working, and Liliana from CARB responded that they're currently working on it. So hopefully Spanish will be up and running soon. Do we have any other questions or comments for CARB? Joy, go ahead.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I was wondering if any of the information on the community hub is downloadable, such as the strategies.
Currently, the table is not downloadable. I can provide you, I'm happy to provide you an Excel-based output or PDF of all the strategies. Part of our Community Hub 2.0 rollout is to make this data downloadable in a reasonable way. So please feel free to reach out to me by email, and I can provide you what we have as far as what appears in the hub.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Joy, I think your hand is re-raised.
Yeah, as long as nobody else is asking any. Is any of the monitoring data ever going to be available at this site?
So the monitoring data itself will not be accessible through the hub, but we hope to expand our integration with the AQView tool as they get it out. So if you have seen what they have up, they do have data down. There is data downloadable for some sites, and we'd happy to bring back folks from the AQView team to discuss that tool's development with the CSC. But the goal of the monitoring portal in the community hub was, and still is, to provide a high-level summary of the locations and types of monitors and types of pollutants being monitored in the community. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions?
Thanks, Chandan. And I did a horrible job introducing myself, by the way, because I think we had discussed being introduced. But my name is Hanjiro Ambrose, and I work in the Office of Community Air Protection at the Air Resources Board. And as I said, please feel free to reach out, and I'm obviously very available.
Great. Well, unless there are no other questions, I don't want to keep folks waiting. So thank you so much, Hanjiro, for the great presentation. And we'll definitely be visiting that portal more often. Great. So moving along, I wanted to open it up for public comments. As a reminder, folks, this is just an open forum for folks to share about upcoming events and activities happening around Portside community. Sandy?
Yeah, thank you, Chewy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Okay, good evening, everyone. I just want to quickly announce that tomorrow at 6 p.m., the Port of San Diego is hosting a workshop about the expansion of Pepper Park. So this is a real opportunity to really get feedback for not only those that live in National City, but work in National City, and who just love National City about re-envisioning what our open space can look like on our tidelands. So the workshop, again, it is 6 p.m. tomorrow. It will be on Zoom. It will be simultaneously interpreted, just like this meeting. It will be interpreted in Spanish and Tagalog. So it's going to be very interactive, and I encourage everyone to attend. The nexus here is that, as we redesign our park, this is, mitigating, the air pollution we have. So we really want to talk about reclaiming space and having it work for our families. So what I'm going to do in the chat, I'm going to go ahead and include the link to register, because you will need your own link. And if you guys have any questions, you can go ahead and email me, and I'll put my email in the chat. And that's it.
Great, thank you, Sandy.
Tree, if I may offer a quick comment related to this. Thank you, Commissioner Naranjo. I also just wanted to point out for folks that Pepper Park expansion was called out in our SERP also as an important part of our strategies. And also as we look at expanding green spaces in the community, that's also a very important opportunity. So definitely encouraging members of the public and members of the steering committee to participate in the meeting. And thank you, Commissioner Naranjo, for sharing the information.
Great. So I see Dinah at San Diego Gas and Electric, followed by
Yes.
Janice.
Thank you so much, Chewy. Just wanted to mention, I did post it in the chat that SDG&E will be hosting EV Fleet Day on April 7th, where we have about 15 OEMs that will bring their large vehicles, medium heavy duty, from forklifts to work trucks to Class 8 vehicles to MTS bus. And so hopefully you can join us. We also have a panel session that starts at 9 that is just going to be discussing regulation, customer experience, and then connections with various electric vehicle charging suppliers. Also, I did want to mention that I believe by the end of this month, or maybe early or mid-April, we should have 10 charging stations at Pepper Park installed and ready for the public to use. Thank you.
Great news. Thank you, Dinah.
And APCD will be at that event, so make sure you stop by our booth.
Great. Janice, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm doing my regular commercial for Branch Out San Diego. We do have trees available for the community to plant in their yard to reduce greenhouse gases, and they serve as carbon sequestration trees. They are high rate carbon sequestration trees that will be planted throughout the communities of National City, Barrio Logan, west side of Chula Vista, and San Isidro. So we're also looking for partnerships. I'm going to put the link to the website for Branch Out San Diego. This is our partnership with Tree San Diego. We're going door to door, but more importantly, we want to partner with larger organizations. We're looking to be at the YMCA's upcoming events. So if you can connect us with anyone else that we can help get the word out or get more volunteers, we really appreciate it. And also sign up for a tree and let people know we have free trees for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Free trees.
Quick question, sorry, quick question for Janice. Janice, is this program limited to a particular area in the region, or can anybody region-wide participate in the program?
Gracias. It is limited to CalAvirus screens determined disadvantaged community sites, the ones that we listed off, which is perfect for this meeting. But there is an allowance for residents or participants that go to events in high pollution areas. For example, when we're hosting out of Chicano Park, anybody that came up and signed up there is able to qualify because they attend the community events there. And so there is a little bit of a leeway, and it could be also a mile out of the disadvantage of the CalAvirus screens disadvantaged community zones. So in National City, it would go out a little bit into like the Paradise Hill area and the surrounding areas, as an example.
Thank you so much, Janice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements or general public comments? I'll definitely be sharing that information over to folks' email, so folks who weren't on the call know about them as well. Hearing none. So I just wanted to hand it over to Domingo for any closing remarks for today's meeting.
Thank you, Troy. Just wanting to thank everybody for their participation tonight. And for those of you who are new to this meeting, who joined us for the workshop portion of it, thank you so much for making the time and for being here. And just reminding folks that our Office of Environmental Justice framework will be presented to our board in our April 14 meeting at 2 p.m. And looking forward to seeing everybody again next month.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. And our next meeting will be Tuesday, April 26th. So see you then.
Thanks, everybody. Buenas noches. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.